How you guys doing? This is Dr. Jeff, Chief Medical Officer at Rythmia Life Advancement Center. I'm so excited about what's going on right now for us as a company. Jerry's book just came out with a movie trailer to kind of preface the book. It's called Mrs. Moon's Medicine and the Ayahuasca Miracle. It's really, really amazing. You got to check it out. The trailer is on YouTube. So again, that's Mrs. Moon's Medicine and the Ayahuasca Miracle. I encourage you to get the book. It's on Amazon. So I want to give you a little perspective about Rythmia's groundbreaking approach and why our program is working so well for so many people. When Jerry came to the rehab that I was the director of several years ago, almost 10 years ago, Jerry, as you guys know from some of his Facebook Lives and some of the videos that you guys might have seen, and if you're alumni of Rythmia, the About Your Miracle class, where he kind of describes, his background and like what went on for him. But basically, from my perspective, I was running this rehab, and I was working with all the staff. I was the director, so I was like, I wasn't working one-on-one with anybody, because I was facilitating all the different management groups that we had and all the different therapists and all the staff. I was in charge of them, and I worked directly with the owners of this facility in Malibu. So, one day, this guy shows up, and we had to find him, actually. We had to track him down. When he landed in the Camarillo private airport, we had a car there to pick him up, but we couldn't find the guy. He disappeared. And, sometimes that happens when people are on their way to rehab. They kind of get cold feet. They just, they change their mind, and I don't blame them. They're getting sober and they've had probably a life history of like a lot of rough things happening. So what happened with Jerry is that, first of all, we lost him at the airport. And I have, back then in LA, I had a lot of eyes on the ground to figure out where our clients might have gone to if they didn't show up, or if they went AWOL while they were visiting if they're inpatient with us. So I sent out my guys, and we found Jerry at the Malibu Beach Inn. So that's a nice hotel, right nearby, right on the Pacific Coast Highway there in Malibu. So we went up to his room. The staff got him. They brought him to Passages. That's the name of the rehab that I was running. And he was so wild, and he was so just rough, very nice guy, very, very lovable, but rough and angry, and just like he was on this other level of addiction that nobody at the facility had seen. So usually what happens when somebody comes to the rehab, they'll check them in, they'll do a nursing evaluation on them, they'll go and detox them. That's not what happened with Jerry. He came in the door, and the staff were so worried about this guy that they brought him right to my office. And I was like, okay, all right, who's this guy? What's up with this dude? He's from Pennsylvania, and I can see that he's really rough. He has a lot of drug and alcohol issues. He's got a lot of behavioral, family issues, all kinds of stuff. But there was something about him that stood out right away. And it was, at the time, I couldn't put my finger on it. I didn't know what it was at the time, but there was something unique about this guy. So, instead of turning him over to our treatment teams that we had groups of therapists who would work with different clients, and I would pick, which team would probably be a good match for whatever client. I was thinking of my team. I'm like, who can I match this guy with? His issues are really interesting. Let's say. So I just said, all right, I'm gonna actually work with him myself. I'm gonna put him into my schedule, and I'm gonna work with him not twice a week like we did for most of the clients with the clinical psychologist person. Well, I said I'm gonna work with him every single day. So I had Jerry as a client every day, inpatient for 2 months, and that was an amazing experience for both of us, for different reasons. But what I noticed about Jerry is that he's very committed. When he wants to change, he's committed. And so that's a very interesting thing, because he was so committed to his sobriety and to try to figure out what was going on with him, he was so focused on it that I was like, this dude's going to have success for sure. And I'm happy to be a part of his treatment program to kind of help him through this process. But what happened was he tried every single modality that we offered at the rehab. And there were a lot of modalities. We had yoga, we had group therapy, we had marriage counseling. His wife at the time flew in and we did therapy. We had family counseling. We had his kids came. We sent him, he did, like I said, yoga, and he went to the gym every day, and he went to outside activities, life coaching. He went to the beach. He did so much stuff that he was trying to get past these underlying issues that he had. And all of us, at the rehab, were busting our heads together trying to figure out, like, what is it with this guy that he's dropping off some of the behaviors, but his underlying core reason for not being happy and still, having this sort of addictive drive and this behavioral sort of chaos was confusing to us because, we had put him through every single modality that we knew. And I had him go into everything that I could possibly think of. And the good news for Jerry after the 2 months were up at Passages is that he stopped using injectable Demerol, which was amazing because that's really, really hard to stop. So he stopped doing that. So it was great. But when he checked out of Passages, he continued to drink. He continued to womanize. He continued to get into fist fights. He continued to do all the chaotic things that had led him to where he was in the first place. And he was confused with himself. He didn't know why he was still doing all this stuff, because he had some more insight. Him and I had a great therapeutic relationship. We were, he trusted me, and he was opening up to things. He talked about his childhood, all kinds of stuff that was really rough that he never shared with anybody before. So I felt, as the clinical person, I felt like we had gotten really far, but I was stumped. I didn't know what else we could do to help him feel better and have peace with himself. So one thing that Jerry came across on his own through some friends that he had and some people that he knew was this thing called plant medicine. And, he didn't know anything about it. I had heard little things about it here and there from, I saw a documentary about it, but it's not something that's clinically taught to people like myself in the medical field and the psychology field. It's just not something that's, there's no books that we read about this in school, and it's not a viable protocol because, there's just not a lot of data on it. So Jerry figured out on his own about plant medicine and how this could possibly help him turn that corner where he could get what he really wants out of life, which is basically just to be happy and know who he is and feel connected again. So the interesting thing about Rythmia, now that this event, that Jerry experienced and that I went through with him, many years ago, what we've done at Rythmia is we've built our program around the methodology that helped Jerry get better. That's basically what we've done. So I'm giving you a little preview about what I want to talk about as I'm explaining, my perspective on Jerry's story. So when Jerry, he found out about plant medicine, it was in Costa Rica. He went on a whim, and I was just like, I was like, he makes a joke, and he says that I told him just to go have a vacation because, I didn't know what else to do, and he's right. I'm like, dude, we've tried everything. We've tried therapy, and we've tried exercise and counseling and spiritual work and yoga. Why don't you go take a vacation now? I didn't know what else to do. I was out of tricks. I was just like stumped. So Jerry he went down to Costa Rica. He did plant medicine. In one night, it completely changed his life. And just to give you an idea about how incredible that was, his kids, his wife at the time, my own beliefs, his friends, any therapist that he knew while he was at Passages he was working with, anybody that he had met in LA while he was there, lifetime friends from Pennsylvania that he had, and all these people all thought that this was impossible, that there was no possible way Jerry could change and shift his life based on his history, based on who he was and what he had done, and all the things that, you know, he had accomplished and not accomplished in his life. Everybody thought this was impossible. So Jerry came back from Costa Rica a completely different person. And what I mean by that, to get really specific, before Jerry went to Costa Rica, this is kind of how he would present as a person. He would get really upset quickly. He would either be in a hangover from alcohol position, or trying to seek out alcohol or the next sort of event he could go to and party with friends, dating a ton of women that were not healthy for him in any way at all, distracting himself with bar fights, somebody that was on edge and really volatile. This is how he was before he went to Costa Rica. He came back from this plant medicine experience, and this is how he was. Calm. He was relaxed. He did not want to drink alcohol. He did not want to do drugs. He stopped having these ridiculous relationships with these women that were totally not healthy for him, and he wasn't healthy for them either, you know, actually. And he settled down. He focused on a spiritual practice through Agape with Reverend Michael Bernard Beckwith, who is an amazing, amazing soul who we all love dearly. And he was able to communicate really well. You know, Jerry used to get really upset at people and throw things and be mad and get crazy in business. He stopped doing that. He relaxed and he was calm. He actually cried about things that he felt sad about. He would laugh, truly laugh about things he was happy about. His life became much more simple. And he actually learned who he was and who he had become. And he cleansed all of his sort of irrational, erratic behaviors that were dictating, guiding his life on a permanent basis. Jerry came back a completely changed person. So when I saw this, you know, like I couldn't get to his house quicker. You know, I was living in the marina at the time, and I would just floored it down the PCH to get to his house in Malibu to see this for myself, you know, because he sounded different on the phone. When I got there, I didn't even need to talk to him. I just looked at him, and he was this completely different person. I mean, you know, when you see somebody and they change, and maybe you haven't seen him for, let's say, you know, 10 years, and you're like, wow, you're a totally different person. That's how I felt about him. But I'd seen him, you know, a week before. He was a totally different guy in a great way. His kids said the same thing. His friends said the same thing. Everybody that knew Jerry was like astounded. Everybody wanted to know, what the heck happened for you, dude? Like, what did you do in Costa Rica? Like, how did that happen so quickly? He told us. He told us. And I went down a couple weeks later with him, and we went with his son. We also went with Hamid, who runs our Malibu intake department. And we went down there and we did it with them. And it is the real deal. It completely shifted all of us in a healthy, real, grounded, long-term way. It was actually incredible. So what Rythmia is, and the groundbreaking approach that we have, is this: plant medicine, yoga, healthy food, breath work that is a Rythmia style developed by Nicole Rager and Christian, who you guys know are down there. Our own transformational breath work style that's unique to Rythmia. Spiritual practices that are healthy and that are grounding for people. We have classes, The Answer Is You by Michael Beckwith, and we have a great facilitator, Paola Castro, who facilitates that class for us. We have a ton of medical team, a medical staff, a medical director, and nurses. We have the most amazing staff and the most amazing modalities to help you shift and get where you need to be for your life, just like it happened for Jerry. And I'm telling you, I've worked with some of the most extreme cases of psychological and medical stuff that there is, inpatient and outpatient situations, whether it's acute psychiatric, trauma, addiction, you name it. I've been there and I've worked with that. I have never seen anybody as severe as Jerry in a way that he was able to function in society and wasn't locked up in a psych unit. He was living a life, kicking butt in business, and just thriving economically in a way that like the world would say he's okay. But guess what? He wasn't okay. He was miserable. And so if Jerry can shift, which he has incredibly done so through this process, if he can shift and change and become who he's become, I know that you can do the same thing, because I've witnessed it with my own eyes. And it happened in a blink of an eye. It happened in one night. Jerry was able to realize who he'd become. He was able to get a new heart, and he was able to reunite with his soul. That is the groundbreaking approach that we take at Rythmia. That's what we're doing. We're not telling people like, oh, you might get better, and we hope you do, and maybe you will, and well, let's just give it a try. Let's see, you know, you've tried everything else. That's not what we say. That's not what we say, and that's not what we believe. We know that if you come to Rythmia and you follow this program from A to Z for this week that you're there, and some people do too, for at least a week, you will realize your goals. You will shift as a person. You will get to know who you really are. Come down and check it out. Watch the video on YouTube, Mrs. Moon's Medicine and the Ayahuasca Miracle. Get the book. It'll change your life, and Rythmia will change your life. I'm telling you, get down here, get to Costa Rica, and do this, because there's nothing else like it in the world. And it is an amazing thing, and we've tailored it after the program that Jerry went through, that him and I built together as we worked through his issues that were an infinite list long. You can do this. Come down. I look forward to seeing you. Pura vida.